All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our first episode of the Food Lovers Elective, a craft conversation series. We're really excited to have you guys here today. So today's episode is Cheers Queers, exploring the LGBTQ space in the food system. So we just want to really welcome everybody. At Craft, we seek to foster a transformative regional food system in Western Pennsylvania that recognizes the central role of food systems in our society and the values of the people who live and work within them. We envision a food system that is equitable, fostering fairness and transparency across the value chain. A system that is sustainable, actualizing economic, social, and cultural well-being as part of the food system. And a food system that is inclusive, valuing dignity, sovereignty, and the inherent power of all people. With this in mind, this week's episode is called Cheers Queers, Exploring LGBTQ Spaces in the Food System. Our host, Calla Norman, is a dual degree Food Studies and MBA student at Chatham University. Today, she's interviewing Ralph Morrow, co-owner of 5801 Video Lounge and Bar, to explore the importance of gay bars to the LGBTQ plus community and how food and food activism makes space for queer voices. This episode will take about an hour with the last 10 to 15 minutes reserved for Q&A. So feel free to submit your questions using the Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. We also should have the chat, the comment section open, so feel free to comment amongst yourselves. And we hope you really you guys really enjoy this, because we really had a lot of fun putting this together for you guys. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Calla and let them get started.
All right, thank you, Ani. And thank you, Ralph, for sitting today to talk to me. I just wanted to give a bit of background to where I'm coming from, and what inspired me to talk to you today, and to have this conversation about queer spaces in the food system. You're muted, by the way. Can't be a Zoom conference without.
How's that?
That's perfect. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you perfectly loud and clear.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. What is a Zoom conference without, saying, "Oh, you're on mute"?
Yes.
It's just how it is. But yeah, it's always been something that's really interested me. It's something that I feel like in food system we often talk about in the peripheries. So I'm really excited to get a actual real world conversation with somebody who is active in the food system and in the LGBT community.
Yes.
So without further ado, let's get started.
My dog is causing an issue, and I know you told me not to, but I don't have any other place to put him.
Oh, it's okay. We'll make do. And I mean, gotta love animals and Zoom conferences anyway. A little bit of flavor.
If he continues, I'll hold on one second. Let me try something different. But if I go away, he's gonna really get upset.
All right. Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Hopefully he'll settle down in a couple minutes.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm sorry. This is not working either. I'm so sorry. You guys were very clear about this.
It's okay. It's how it happens. It's either kids or it's dogs or, roommates or something like that.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I think this might work.
You got the dog in your lap now?
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I'd love to know a little bit about you. Where did you grow up?
I'm from the area. I'm originally from Moon Township, so out by the airport. My mother and family still live in the same, well, my mother now lives in the same house that we grew up in. And so I've lived in this area my whole life. I live in the Thornburg area now, so we'll call it Crafton or Robinson.
Cool. So what led you to stay in Pittsburgh and to start a business here?
Well, I went to Robert Morris College and got a business degree. And after coming out of school, got a couple different jobs and eventually settled in the airline industry and was in the in-flight department, writing training programs and doing things of that nature for the in-flight department. And through sports, met my business partner playing softball, and we were out on a softball tournament. And at one particular point in time, we said, we should get into business together and own a gay bar. And over time, that came to fruition.
That's awesome. So, okay, how did you go from working in the airline industry to working in the restaurant industry? Like, did you always want to be a bar owner, or what did that look like?
I would say I've always had a business mind or something along those lines, and always had a desire to work for myself, and have some of the autonomy that goes with making your own decisions and answering to your own abilities. So I didn't necessarily have to be a bar, but we were out drinking at a bar after a softball game, and we said, oh yeah, we should do this. And over time, I became familiar with some of the other gay bar owners in the city. And I'll say they took me under their wing and gave me some advice and a tip that this particular bar was for sale, and along with the building that houses it, and wanted to see if we were interested in it, and we were.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, and I previously didn't know because I'm new to Pittsburgh, but so Ralph and Darren bought 5801 in 2005, right?
Yes.
And then you remodeled it, refreshed it. You added the video screens that you're now famous for. So what was the whole intention behind these additions, behind refreshing the menu and adding in the videos?
Well, yeah, at that time, the bar was called New York, New York when we bought it. And it had always been a gay establishment, to my understanding, for many years. And it was, for a while, it was a more upscale and fancy restaurant that also had a small bar. And through time, and the previous owner, they had, remodeled a little bit, but the menu had gone from being more upscale to more bar oriented. And at that time, I would say bars for the gay community were beginning to transition from dark, no one knows that they're there, hidden spaces, to spaces that were much more out and open. And there was, at that time, back in the early 2000s, there was a bar called True on the north side, which, at least for me, for my own personal knowledge, was like the first really nice space that you could say, okay, this is for us and it's nice. It's not some dark, dingy place that you really wouldn't want to take your mother to, or something like that, let's say. And so that was sort of the idea that we had, that we wanted, or at least I can always say, it's like, okay, would I take my mother here? If I would take my mother here, that was a good decision. If it didn't lead to a place being established that I would be proud to take my mother, then we weren't making the right decisions. And so things just went from there.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what role do you see these changes in making these spaces more accessible, more open? What role do you see that in terms of creating a sense of community within your bar?
If I had to say, I think it helps with understanding and acceptance, is how I would describe it. That's sort of what, at least maybe in the past, searching for acceptance and understanding was maybe a little bit more important than it is now, because there's so much of it. And we're all, each generation is standing to a degree on the generation before that, did things that made things a little bit better for the next generation. And I've stood on those other people, and now we'll say we're trying to provide a platform for the next generation to say, okay, they're going to take, like yourself, you're going to take your next steps forwards, and build on the things that have already happened.
That's nice. Yeah. So where do you see queer bars fitting into the food culture of Pittsburgh in particular?
Um, I'm I'm not so sure about how they fit into the food culture, except that I do think that it's it's going to be more incumbent on uh, bars to not be just a bar, but to provide something to eat. Like when we, for the most part, when we started, the other gay bars didn't really, I don't want to say they didn't have food at all, but they didn't have like a menu and food. They might have a buffet or things like that after events or something like that. But for the most part, there wasn't anything that really was a gay space that, was a bar and a restaurant at the same time. The restaurant side of the business, although at the beginning was more minimal than it is now, it has slowly grown throughout the years to be a much bigger part of the whole facility and establishment.
Yeah, and it's so important to have those spaces where it isn't just about drinking and dancing, as fun as those things are. It's great to have that place where you can go and just sit around a table with people over a plate of wings or something.
Right.
Yeah, and
when we've always been big on activities, so it's never. I'm not saying there aren't times, Friday and Saturday night, people want to go out and socialize and they don't want activities going on and things like that. But there's enough hours in the day and the week to provide a variety of events and programs, if you want to call them. Like we've had dart leagues and poker leagues and trivia and bingo and things like that over the years. And we've always been a big believer that that is something that A, we like as the owners here, and B, that we think is beneficial for our customer base.
Yeah, and so those activities, they sound like a lot of fun. I love trivia nights, so I'm gonna have to keep that in mind for sure.
Trivia is Tuesday and Friday right now, so it's Tuesday's very popular.
Ooh, okay, noted. So with these events and just with the operations of the bar in general, like what does community building look like to you in the context of this gay bar, both before the pandemic and now?
Yeah, I'll speak to that mostly before the pandemic because I think now is still undetermined. I think we want to continue the same things that we did in the past, but how that's going to be changed is still a little uncertain. I am working with some organizations right now to try to do some things in the next couple months. So we're working out some details, but we've always felt that this establishment being such a focal point for the community, at least in our estimation, it's incumbent upon it. Not only do we want to do it, but I think it's incumbent upon the owners of this business to support the community as a whole to the greatest extent that we can. We're, providing space for organizations to come together, providing support for the different even offsite events where Shepherd Wellness is raising money, and they used to do a big event at the City Theater, and we would provide all the liquor and beer and things like that for the bar so that they could sell tickets and make money. That was one of their bigger fundraisers. There's a variety of those events over the years that we've done, and we used to do our drag brunch before COVID, and there was always a collection for a smaller local charity. I call them grassroots local charities, places like True Tea and things like that. That these fundraisers, we're talking about a few $100s, but for some organizations, a few $100s is critically important, and for some organizations, a few $100s. Every little bit helps, but the bigger organizations require different support. So we've tried to help the bigger organizations where we can, but also not forget about the smaller places that a few $100s and a little bit of exposure that their organization and group exists even. I've always also, there's new people coming of age every day. There's new people coming out every day. There's new people moving to Pittsburgh every day. So for small organizations, it's a never-ending battle, not a battle, but it's a never-ending job to continue awareness. you move, like if you're not from here, you yourself, you move to Pittsburgh and you don't know, I mean, you can look them up, but you don't know of anything until you've, coming into contact with it. So I think that's a big part of it too, exposure.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that. So I am actually curious about these smaller grassroots organizations that you all support. How does that relationship come to being? Do they come to you? Do you seek them out? Do your drag performers bring them?
Most of the time, for some of them in the beginning, we sought them out. We have lots of friends in the area that do a lot of differing things. One of them is Sarah Rosso, who's a Chatham grad and right now runs the Hugh Lane Foundation and used to be in charge or an executive director or whatever at PERSAD. Very talented person who is very connected with a lot of these organizations. And I played softball with her. That's how we met. I was her manager, and we played together, and she's a wonderful, wonderful person. And so, you tap the resources that you know. And so I'd say, Sarah, it's like, okay, we want to do this, and we want to reach out to some of these places where a few $100s makes a difference. Give me some names of some of these organizations, and we'll contact them. And so that was at least a starting point for how to get in touch with organizations that, quite frankly, I was not completely aware of. I mean, I've lived in Pittsburgh all my life, but we're always learning ourselves. New organizations are starting, all the time.
Oh yeah, and especially now, as different needs come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, I mean, I think our core mission, core community mission, I'll say, is to continue to support organizations as they need it, as they approach us and ask for help, or as we can reach out and provide a little bit of additional help. We're working with Stonewall Sports right now. They had to cancel most of their seasons last year, but they are having the Stonewall kickball season. So Stonewall Kickball Pittsburgh is going to have a season that's going to start in a couple weeks. I think it's April 25th or something like that. And they always have a big kickoff party, and we help to support that.
Oh gosh, this sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk a little bit about the pandemic. What sorts of things have changed for 5801 because of it?
Everything.
Yeah, it's a big question.
The first thing to change, and I'm not complaining, I want to be very clear, but the first thing that's changed is the true struggle to provide employment. We've had to lay off a vast majority of the staff, but also through the help of the PPP loans, we've been able to remain open and to pay some of our management staff and things like that, the full salaries that they were getting before. And, just to keep people employed, I would say or ensuring that we're keeping people employed is, to me, the number one challenge that has taken place. We have a good staff, but it's just a challenge. The rules for the pandemic as it relates to the restaurant industry have been challenging, and making, a large percentage of our business was made after 11 o'clock at night. And so, and I do admit that is largely bar business, not food business, but the bar business enables the food business to be in business, if that makes any sense. The bar business is what enables us to give money back to the community and things like that. That's where that money comes from, if we're being honest about it, at least in my business. So those hours have been taken away from us, and it's just been financially impactful.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's a good thing for you guys, at least, that you did have the food aspect of things, because I know that so many other places haven't been as lucky.
Yeah, if we didn't have a food aspect of it, and we weren't able to add one that I mean, I've seen some things going out and about. It's like, here's a peanut butter sandwich. I don't really think that was the intent, but also at the same time, my own personal opinion is, it's like, okay, why do you have to have a chicken sandwich in order to have a beer? To me, I personally don't agree with that, but I'm also not at odds with maintaining a safe environment and a pandemic safe environment for my staff, myself, my customers, everybody who comes here. We want it to be safe. There's no question about that.
Right. And I mean, kind of as you were saying earlier, is that a lot of kind of the image of a gay bar has so often been kind of dark, crowded, more dance board places. And although those can't quite exist at the moment, it is nice to have still those places where you can go and be out in public. And so like, I can see how it's like totally valuable, and, food is a conduit for that is really important.
Well, I think if we've learned anything, or if I've learned anything, because I don't want to project my learning or whatever I've gained or gleaned out of this whole thing, is how really important social aspects are to our life that we might have taken for granted. It's like, okay, you get up in the morning and you go to work and you're interacting with people, and then you go to see your mother, and then, okay, friends, let's go out, whether we eat or have a drink or whatever, but we're going out, we're just standing around talking and chatting. And then on the weekends we play sports, and all of that, pretty much a lot of it went away. And it didn't just go away for a couple of weeks, it went away for a year now. And that's been, I don't know, for me, I haven't hugged my mother in a year. That's an astonishing statement to me. If you really think about that small thing, it's incredible. So I think that, the loss of the interaction and things like that with people to a degree where, at least for me, your big thing is, I don't want to do, I'm less concerned about me, but I'm concerned about like my mother or my friends or the people that I'm around. You don't want to make them sick. And so I think, there was a lot of fear that was associated with it, at least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So besides the pandemic and before and during, like, what other forces have you seen influencing Phi Beta 1, be it gentrification or things like that?
I think that we've just, over the years tried to change and expand based on our interpretation of what we saw as, if you want to call them, the community and or market forces. We spent a number of years making the facility into the facility that is today. Like there was always a back deck, but in the beginning we added a little tented bar that was on it. Then we added to the bar or to the deck and made the deck a little bit bigger. And then we put the large enclosed patio bar that's out there now. And I would say that's our belief that the community in this area is vibrant enough and strong enough to support that financial investment. The community is out enough, for using an old school term, that that acceptance is there, and that people want, need, and should have nicer facilities, nicer places. So we continue to try and upgrade the facility so that it represented a standard that we felt we should be projecting, if that makes any sense. And what our customers, although we didn't have surveys, what we believed our customers want. That's sort of more of a feel or guesswork rather than market research that we did. It's sort of a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I've been really curious about, and about getting a bar owner's opinion on this, is one thing that I've noticed a lot in my experience at gay bars, and that a lot of my friends have had problems with, have been acts of voyeurism by straight audiences coming into gay bars, or bachelorette parties coming in that are for a straight bachelorette party, for example.
Right.
What are your thoughts on those kinds of events?
Well, to my knowledge, and maybe I'm naive or maybe I'm oblivious, I don't see that happening a whole lot, if at all, here. I've never seen what I would call the voyeurism aspect that you're saying, where somebody wants to. We certainly have had bachelorette parties, and for the most part, they're harmless, and they're coming out, and I view it to a degree as and maybe I'm looking at it, the glass is half full instead of the glass, not that you were saying anything that makes it the glass half empty, but to me the glass is half full, and that, okay, every time someone comes into my establishment, that is an opportunity to change their perspective about our community. If they had an adverse perspective, they can come and say, hey, this is a nice place. Oh, service is pretty good. Oh, the people are nice. There's not people having sex in the middle of a bar or something. I don't know what they envision may or may not be happening, but it's not any different. So I view that as a chance or an opportunity or a hopeful message that can be, it's like, okay, this was fine. And then they can leave and say, oh, there's nothing here to fear or to have a negative emotional response about, or whatever it might have been that brought them in under those circumstances to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and it is very important to have like a place, for it to be our space and to have like that community, but
for sure. If there was ever something, without going into negatives, because we almost have, to be honest with you, we truly almost have no negatives, but there was one negative incident one time, and I'm like, okay, you need to leave. And it was along those lines, and it doesn't need to be repeated. It was just, okay, you need to go. And that is the one and only direct incident in 15 years that I personally was involved with, or even am aware of from any of my staff, from incident reports and things like that. So I don't believe, that is something that is transpiring here on any meaningful numbers.
Yeah. So kind of on that note, and this doesn't necessarily need to be, about Phi Beta 1, but just in general, of queer bar culture in general, what problems do you see in the culture, and do you see any solutions towards them?
Well, I think I don't know if it's a problem, but one of the older aspects of gay bars, if you go back to when I was younger, so going back 20 or 30 years, and when I first came out, I never understood why we had to have a gay bar and we would have a lesbian bar. I was like, well, what's the problem? I would think we would all just be together and get along. And I came out later, and maybe again I was naive, but that's everything. Okay, here's your leather bar, here's your twink bar, here's your dance bar, here's your lesbian bar, here's your gay bar. Those, I thought that they were fine, but to me, they created separations within the community that to me didn't completely make sense to me in the very beginning of my, I'll call it coming out educational experiences. And I think that, and I travel a little bit to other cities, and I think that the numbers of those bars that have a specific segment that they're almost exclusive to has diminished. And I personally, this is just my personal opinion, think that's a good thing, because I think, and if I'm happiest about almost anything, is the inclusiveness that this place has. Everybody comes here from, every segment of the community. And I hope anyway, or we strive that they'll all feel comfortable and that it all suits their needs. It's tough to be all things for all people all the time. But I think that we're moving in that direction. And I think this establishment tries to put that at the forefront.
Yeah, and I totally agree that, gay bars such as Phi Beta 1 should strive to be, a place where everybody can come and be together. Though I do know that there are a lot of people, including myself, who think that, having these spaces, like especially lesbian bars, are very important because, or, other spaces, for instance, of spaces for transgender people, to have these places where, that are sometimes, safe from, sexism or transphobia or those kinds of things, where in, some places that strive to be fully egalitarian don't always quite make it.
Yes.
And like, there are only 13 lesbian bars in the entire United States now, that are specifically lesbian bars. And, I personally think that some of these that are disappearing is a problem because like
Okay.
not having that space. But yeah, but it is, I agree with you, like totally important to have like spaces where everybody can come and be together.
Definitely. I memean, I didn't mean to say that differing spaces don't create opportunities, but to be honest, at a certain point, it becomes a business numbers game. Is there enough customer base in whatever city you're talking about to support something that is that might not have that enough support. And that's why I think it's important for places like this who have the ability to, we need to provide that support because it's not being provided to you potentially in an exclusive other location.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I mean, not everywhere could be like, what is it, West Hollywood? That's the L word. And everyone is, yeah. Let's see. So where do you see queer culture fitting into the food system in general?
Since, some of the stuff that we've been talking about and I've been thinking about, it's hard. I don't know that there's such a strong connection between queer culture and food beyond, the normal connection that, any culture has towards food. Certainly here, we are providing what I would call, Darren provides most of the recipes and does most of the cooking. That's the other owner. And I think he's an excellent cook, but we're certainly not chef driven, and we're not going to be confused with Gordon Ramsay or anything like that anytime soon. So I don't know how to answer that is basically what I'm going to say. And I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer than that for you.
Yeah, it's such a tough question because I feel like it's not, as I said earlier in our conversation, I feel like it's not something that like we personally talk about in food system or food studies all that often either. For me, the way that I see queer culture fitting into the food system is through like the concepts of mutual aid and community building, like potlucks. Potlucks are a really queer thing, actually. And, a lot of it, came from activism and people having to come together with very, very limited resources and, bring food and feed each other, while having these long discussions about equality and about, building up the community. So that's what it means to me personally.
And that's sort of something that we did, well, in the support phase, in the beginning portions of the pandemic, going back to the Hugh Lane Foundation again. They were, we supported them by donating food and also donating space where we stored food for them, and provided boxes and organization, meaning, okay, we want to, here's all these boxes and here's all this food. They need a space to organize it, put it all together, and then that would be a box of food that they would distribute to a community member who was in need. So we certainly have always done that, and supported all of the local food banks to a degree, whether they were queer focused or not. But this pandemic relief was focused on the queer and transgendered community that the Hugh Lane Foundation supports. So we always help with those things.
Yeah, and that is just amazing. So my like final serious question is, what can people do, consumers do to help LGBTQ plus people in the food system?
I think that there's more people in need than people realize, and I would say this is going to be a little bit more broader, and I'll try to bring it down to the food system. But I think people with some means and some comfort in their life, we'll say, meaning they're not struggling, should, even if they don't need the services of a lot of these smaller organizations, et cetera, should become involved a little bit more to understand what these different programs are providing and how they're providing it. And then volunteer or write a check, or I think even more than volunteering, I think, I'm sorry, writing a check, I think more volunteering and getting involved, I think, is a big thing. And, you know, how that fits into the food system is you find that one organization that is in need, and provide, you know, ask, hey, what do you need? You know, I know that this Tulane Foundation has some services out in Beaver County, which is near where my mother lives. And anyway, I just had some recourse to provide some food if I can, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to try if I can to one of their centers out there, because I might have some food that I can donate. And there's more people that are in need than you understand, or the average person understands. I was speaking with one of the, I'm not sure if he's the new executive director, but one of the people in charge of Shepherd Wellness, and they provide support to people living with and affected by HIV, and they're one of the longest HIV organizations, I think, in the city. But anyway, the food they provide a dinner every week, I think. Don't quote me, but anyway, long and short, they're having some problems. Their cook got hurt. You know, if there's people that are involved with that organization that can then say, okay, well, wait a minute, I can volunteer and help out while their cook who's making these dinners for people who need it. You know, so you know, the food takes a lot of things. First of all, food is you know, disposable to a degree, in that, you know, so you have to have refrigerated space, or you have to have frozen space, someplace to store it, even if it's a dry good. So it requires space, it requires handling, which is manpower, and then it requires, so there's lots of things that it requires before you even cook it. And then you have to cook it, and then you have to deliver it. And so that whole process along there's a lot of pieces along that way that can be helpful, you know, in addition to just the food itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, to that end, especially with like HIV positive people, a lot of times, you know, they need a special, you know, food to be specially created, or like different preparation, different nutritional factors for it. I don't know quite the details, but I
don't know either. And I think there's that I don't want to, the dinners of that dinner also for them is a very social interaction, where they feel like they get their, that's their comfort space, where they can come and be themselves and not be judged and things like that. And so it's become, and this is what food is communal. Sorry, I don't, hold on, wait a minute. Hold on, I think
You're back.
It just said my battery's low.
Oh no. Well, we should
20%. We're good for now.
Yeah, we're good. But yeah, exactly. That the communal aspect of food is so important, and it's why spaces like 5801 are fantastic, because it's like having that place to, you know, as we've gone over and over, and it's almost a cliche, but, you know, coming together over food, it's so important.
And you, just to go back to the things we talked about, you know, if you're saying, okay, how can we help in the food area? Well, again, you might just have, you know, the ability to store food. Like I'd said, the space to store it, or something like that, for an organization that, you know, needs extra space or needs a refrigerator. You might say, okay, well, I have this old refrigerator. How I'm just going to get rid of it. Well, it might be something that helps within the food delivery process of keeping something cold. If you don't have enough space to keep it cold, it's a problem.
Yeah, totally. Well, as we wait and see if anybody else has any further questions from our audience, I have a couple of fun questions.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so what's your favorite item on the menu at 5801?
We've always had this, it's a wrap. It was made up by one of our staff, whose name was Nikki. And so we call it the Little Nikki, and it's been on the menu ever since. And it's chicken fingers, French fries, American cheese, ranch dressing, and barbecue sauce in a wrap.
French fries and anything is such a Pittsburgh thing.
Absolutely. Exactly.
But oh man, that sounds good. I like just ate and that sounds really good.
It's good comfort food. It's good bar food. It's simple, it's easy, and it tastes good all the time.
Yeah. And like, honestly, what's better than bar food, after, at any point?
I agree.
Besides 5801, what's your favorite queer bar that you've been to? Or LGBTQ plus centered space?
I go to all the places all the time, to a degree. I've always been a little bit fond of the Harris Grill because they're next to us, and I would call that a queer space. I wouldn't call it a queer bar. One of the owners is gay, but it is a place that I consider to be extremely gay friendly, or if otherwise, they've always supported the gay community. Over the years, I've always gone to Brewers a lot because it's a good spot to go after softball. The owner there is very nice, and that she's done a lot of really good work for the community as well, and giving back, and updating her space and making it nicer and everything, and adding some outside space that she's done in the near past. I could go on, but a lot of the places that I used to go to, they're all gone. The Holiday and things like that. That have the old Eagle was always a fun place on Saturdays years ago if you wanted to dance and things like that. A lot of those spaces have gone away, but the places that remain are still they're still fun places to go.
Yeah. For me, I want to give a shout out to my favorite bar in at my undergrad town. It was called The Back Door, which I think is a very great name for a gay bar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't appear that we've got any questions so far. So I think we can wrap it up. I have one more question for you though.
Sure.
And so that question is, if you could think of a dish already existing or imaginary that you think perfectly represents queer culture as you see it, what would it be?
Oh my God. That perfectly represents queer culture. Oh, I like so many different types of cuisines. I don't want to say something I'll say something, anything, because I'm old school. I would say some old Julia Child French comfort food dish, like oh God, I can't say the name of the dish that it's made with duck meat, but it's slow roasted. It takes a long time. It's very fussy. And maybe I'm fussed. Maybe I'm a fussy old queen. I don't know. But I would say something that's French Julia Child comfort food.
Ooh, yeah, I feel that. Like from that same era, James Beard, he was gay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a really great biography out there called "The Man Who Ate Too Much," I think, by John Birdsall. All about him, all about
I didn't know that. See, you learn something new every day.
Yeah, James Beard. The James Beard Awards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Big old queer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we actually do have a question. So I faked you out there. So Elaine wants to know, as a straight person who considers herself an ally to the LGBTQ community, how can I best support these establishments while not infringing on a queer space?
Well, at least to me here, come on out and join the fun. If you're an ally to the queer community, it's not like I don't mean to be offensive to one person or another, but everybody's welcome here, that wants to come out and wants to have a good time, and is a supporter of what we're trying to do within the queer community. So I would say come out, or again, I would say find a small local organization that's mission means a little bit more to you than maybe one of the other ones, and donate some of your time and show that we're all in this together.
Yeah, Elaine says, great. She loves spending her money at 5801. So yeah, come out. We'll go to trivia. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got. And thank you, Ralph, for taking the time today to be on this panel. And yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ani, for making this this space, available.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And if you guys ever need anything, if we can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out, and we try to support everybody that we can.
Yeah, and go out to 5801.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for joining our very first episode of the Food Lovers Elective, a craft conversation series. We want to share our internal gratitude to Ralph of 5801 Video Lounge for their time, and just the knowledge that you shared with us today. I really appreciate it.
I had a very fun time. It was very conversational, like we talked about that was going to be, and hopefully it sounded good.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
So please be sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram at 5801 Video Lounge, and visit their location on Ellsworth in Pittsburgh. Thank you to Calla Norman for her work on this episode and the care she took in participating in the very first episode. So a round of applause for Calla for doing that for us. Really appreciate you. Chatham community, if you want to see what it takes to be in Calla's seat as a student moderator for future episodes, please click the link posted in the chat, which I will do in just a second, to fill out the submission form. You can also email us at craft@chatham.edu for further information. Please take a few minutes to fill out our survey so we can continue to improve this series and really be able to tailor it to your interest. Also, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Last but not least, please join us next week at 2 p.m. For Foodimation, the intersection of animation and food. Frankie Williams, the Food Studies graduate student, will interview the Senior Vice President of the Jim Henson Company, Sydney Clifton, to discuss how animators create food on screen that looks so good to eat. So have a good day, everyone, and see you next week. Like I said, I will put the link in the chat, but also email us at craft@chatham.edu if you would like to be a part of our next conversation series. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.